He was lay on the hospital bed in the ICU, cold and still. Dorian Hale, 47, had been declared dead just minutes ago. His chest was supposed to be motionless. His heart nothing but a memory. But then, it moved, slowly, rising and falling. And his eyes opened, staring straight at the ceiling, unblinking. Every nurse and doctor I've worked with in my 10 years in the ICU knows this is impossible. No pulse, no heartbeat, no warmth. Yet here he was, breathing like the line between life and death had been ripped open right in front of me. I stood frozen, heart hammering, unable to look away. He shouldn't exist in this state. He shouldn't breathe nor see. And yet, Dorian Hale was doing all of it. If you think you understand death, hold that thought. Because what I saw in that room will make you question everything you know about life in the human body. Before we dive deeper into what's happening, hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss this story that will chill you and stay with you long after the video ends. My name is Thomas Brennan. I've been an ICU nurse for over a decade, and I've seen things in hospitals that would make most people run screaming from a room. I started my career at the University of Texas at Austin, where I earned my degree in nursing. 4 grueling years of late nights, long clinical rotations, and endless textbooks taught me one thing. Life is fragile, and death is final. At least, that's what we all believed. I've worked on the front lines of emergency care, witnessed car crash victims brought in on stretchers with shattered bodies, seen strokes and heart attacks steal people's lives in minutes. I've held the hands of patients as they took their last breaths, offered comfort to families as they watched their loved ones slip away, and done it all without flinching. In this line of work, fear is a luxury you can't afford. You either steel yourself or you break. I learned to steel myself years ago, but nothing in my experience prepared me for Dorian Hale. Nothing I've seen, touched, or measured could explain what was happening in that cold, fluorescent-lit room in Dallas. I've moved corpses, assisted in pronouncements, managed patients on ventilators who teetered on the edge of life and death, but never anything like this. He was supposed to be gone. Everything in my training, in my instincts, screamed that he was dead. And yet, there he was, breathing. His eyes wide, staring at nothing, completely unresponsive, yet undeniably alive in some twisted, impossible way. I've spent years learning the rules of life and death. I know the patterns, the signs, the protocols. I know how to respond when the body fails, when the heart stops, when the monitors flatline. I've been in rooms where family members have wailed and begged, where doctors have given the grim news, and I've been the one steadying their hands, offering the words they needed to hear. I've never panicked, never doubted myself, and now, standing over Dorian Hale, all that certainty evaporated. The protocols didn't apply. The textbooks didn't cover this. The rules I had memorized and relied upon my entire career had been ripped up in front of my eyes. Even now, recounting it, I can feel that cold, creeping dread sliding down my spine. The kind that tightens your chest and makes your stomach knot. Not fear of what is alive, not fear of monsters or shadows, but fear of the rules themselves breaking. And in that moment, I realized that no amount of experience could guard me against witnessing the impossible firsthand. Put yourself in my shoes for a moment. Imagine standing in a hospital room in Dallas, Texas, with a man declared dead, yet every fiber of your being tells you he's still alive. Could you remain calm? Could you even look away? Drop your comments if you want to stay with me as I unravel what no nurse could ever explain. In the ICU, once a patient is pronounced dead, a strange calm settles over the room. The monitors fall silent, the beeping stops, and the lights overhead cast a sterile glow on still sheet. Documentation is updated, the time of death confirmed, and the body is prepared for transfer. Everything is deliberate, precise. Even in those moments, the body continues to whisper its last messages. Sometimes there's a faint hiss as air escapes from the lungs or digestive system. Occasionally, a finger or toe twitches. Muscles contract unpredictably as rigor mortis begins its slow march. Equipment hums softly. These sounds are subtle. They make the room feel alive, when in truth it is not. An inexperienced nurse might jump, imagine something's moving, hear a voice where there is none. We learn to read these signs and dismiss them. I had followed this routine for over a decade. Every shift, every death, reinforced the certainty of it. You respect the finality, you follow protocol, trust the monitors and your hands. And you also trust what you see as reality. Once a patient is dead, they do not breathe, do not move their eyes, do not react. Until Dorian Hale. The sound hit me first, a slow, deliberate rhythm. I froze, heart hammering, staring at a chest that should have been motionless. My training screamed at me that this was impossible. My eyes, shaking slightly, caught the subtle movement again. And then, impossibly, his lids shifted. Just a hair, enough to make me question everything I thought I knew. This was no reflex nor machine hum. It was real. Alive in a way it had no right to be. And just like that, the ICU's predictable order, the one I had trusted for years, crumbled. Every explanation I had clung to evaporated. This was beyond procedure and science, and I was standing in it, helpless, bearing witness to something that defied every law of life and death I had ever known. I stepped closer, hands trembling despite years of experience, and placed my fingers lightly on Dorian Hale's shoulder. His skin was icy, the chill seeping through my scrubs, confirming what my eyes were already screaming. His body was cold, completely dead by every measure I knew. Yet the rise and fall of his chest continued, slow, deliberate, and shockingly regular. I pressed my fingers against his wrist, searching for a pulse. Nothing. Carotid, radial, femoral, every site was silent. No heartbeat, no thrum of life. My stomach tightened. I could feel the contradiction vibrating through the room. A body that was unmistakably dead, yet moving with the subtle rhythm of respiration. I pulled out my stethoscope and placed it carefully against his chest. The familiar mechanical clicks of the ICU faded behind the sound of air entering and leaving his lungs. Wet, labored, undeniably real. My mind raced, trying to rationalize, to reconcile the impossible. Could it be a mistake in the pronouncement? I had checked the charts myself. 11:37 p.m. yesterday night. CPR attempted, medications administered, pronounced dead. Everything documented correctly. I shined my flashlight across his face. The lids quivered, shifted slightly, but did not close. His eyes remained open, glassy, empty of recognition, yet there, undeniable, staring at the ceiling. No blinking, just the slow, deliberate persistence of a body refusing to obey the most fundamental law of human life. I could almost hear my own heartbeat in the quiet ICU room, hammering against the walls. Rational explanations tumbled through my mind and fell apart one by one. Dorian Hale was breathing, and he was dead. Imagine standing there, your hands brushing cold skin, the chest moving steadily under your fingers, the eyes wide open, refusing to close, staring blankly at nothing. The disbelief, the dread crawling up your spine. Your mind screaming for a rational explanation that simply does not exist. The body beneath you defying everything you've learned, everything you've sworn to trust. It's a feeling that burrows into your chest, that makes you question every certainty you ever had about life and death. That's what I was facing. That's what I was forced to witness. And even now, remembering it, I can feel that frozen terror clawing back. I grabbed the radio with hands that felt heavier than lead and called down to the ICU operator. "This is Thomas Brennan on the floor," I said, my voice tight. "We have a patient, Dorian Hale, pronounced deceased last night, showing clear respiratory effort. I need Dr. Rachel Morrison here immediately." Within minutes, Dr. Morrison arrived, her white coat brushing the floor as she moved with that precise, no-nonsense urgency that comes only from years of running emergency units. She didn't ask questions at first. She just approached Dorian, her eyes narrowing as she processed the scene. I led her to his side and she leaned over, placing her stethoscope carefully on his chest. Her fingers probed for a pulse, carotid, radial, femoral, nothing. But she didn't flinch. Her voice was calm, but the undertone betrayed disbelief. "Flatline," she said quietly, almost to herself. We hooked him up to the ECG monitor. The screen remained stubbornly empty, no heart activity, nothing. I could feel a tremor in my chest as I glanced at the pulse oximeter. No reading, oxygen saturation undetectable. Yet the rise and fall of his chest never faltered. Each breath was slow, measured, undeniably real. Dr. Morrison's gaze never left him, but her mind was racing. She called in 2 nurses, brought portable monitoring equipment, and together we confirmed it again. No heartbeat, no pulse, yet lungs functioning, drawing in oxygen, expelling carbon dioxide. Machines verified the impossible. The very tools we relied on to measure life and death were telling us conflicting stories. We reached out to the hospital specialist pulmonology, cardiology, neurology. Emails were sent. Phones rang. Experts flooded the ICU. Yet every single one arrived, ran their tests, and returned with the same baffled conclusions. No cardiac activity, brainstem reflexes absent, pupils fixed and dilated, temperature hypothermic. Yet respiratory effort persisted. The room felt heavier with each passing minute. The normal hum of the ICU now a background for something unexplainable. Dr. Morrison paced, double-checking equipment, reviewing charts, re-verifying medication logs. Nothing could account for it. No one dismissed what we were witnessing. Everyone was perplexed, a rare kind of professional horror gripping the team. Confusion not from ignorance, but from the stark impossibility staring us in the face. I kept checking his chest, watching the lungs rise and fall, feeling the cold resistance under my hands. Every time I thought I might be hallucinating, Dr. Morrison would tap the monitors, shake her head, and sigh. "This shouldn't be happening," she murmured, her voice steady but tight. "By all accounts, he's dead, and yet..." She let the thought trail off because no words could bridge the chasm between life and what we were seeing. If you were standing there in a room full of seasoned ICU professionals, watching a body that should be inert continue to breathe, feeling that raw tension, the disbelief, the way the air itself seems heavier, charged with something wrong and impossible. Your colleagues, equally unnerved, yet unable to offer any comfort. What will you do? Let me know in the comment section. And in that moment, I realized we weren't just witnessing a medical anomaly, but standing on the edge of a truth the textbooks didn't cover. A line between life and death that no training had prepared us to face. Hours bled into the days, each minute dragging with an oppressive weight. Dorian Hale lay in the ICU bed, his chest rhythmically rising and falling, each breath a quiet, stubborn protest against the finality that had been declared hours before. I watched him from the corner of the room, eyes never leaving the subtle movements of his body. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting blankets, whispering reassurances to themselves. But no one could fully mask the tension curling in the pit of their stomachs. The room grew colder within the night, fluorescent lights casting long, sharp shadows across the tiled floor. Each hour felt like a lifetime. I documented every observation, every anomaly, but words could not capture the sensation of watching someone exist in this suspended state, neither alive in the usual sense nor fully gone. Repetition became the rhythm of our terror. Check pulse, check monitors, curve chest, document findings, repeat, over and over. The monotony was deceptive. It lulled you into thinking it was just routine until the chest would rise again, stubborn and undeniable, and the cold reality would crash back in. The waiting became unbearable, each second stretching into eternity. Think for a moment being in his position, neither truly gone nor fully alive, trapped in a cruel in-between where every sound, whisper, and shadow is amplified by the awareness that you exist where you should not. That's the limbo we faced, and it left its mark on everyone who dared to witness it. Rebecca Hale entered the ICU room with a quiet determination, clutching her husband's hand as if she could tether him back to life through sheer will. Her eyes, wide with disbelief and grief, darted between the monitors and his motionless face. searching for a clue, any signal that he was truly gone or somehow still present. The tension in her shoulders betrayed the impossible contradiction she faced, mourning a man who was technically deceased, yet whose chest still betrayed faint signs of breath. Each shallow rise and fall of his chest made her gasp involuntarily, as though she were witnessing a miracle and a tragedy simultaneously. She whispered his name, almost pleading, hoping the sound of her voice could bridge the gap between this world and whatever fragment of life lingered in him. It was a scene that would haunt anyone who watched. Grief tangled with hope, confusion battling with the undeniable evidence in front of her eyes. I observed silently, the weight of responsibility pressing down like a storm. I felt it, the ethical and emotional strain of tending to someone suspended in this state. Protocols offered no guidance here, no checklist for the ethical quandary of caring for a body that defied death yet required all the treatments and respect due a patient who was no longer alive in the traditional sense. Decisions became heavier, every choice a moral question. Do we intervene further? Do we step back? Each action carried a whisper of consequence, each hesitation an echo of doubt. The room pulsed with quiet tension. Family members hovered nearby, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and sorrow. Rebecca's hands trembled as she clutched his cold fingers, unwilling to let go even as logic screamed she should prepare to say goodbye. There was no simple comfort here, no reassurance that could reconcile the profound emotional contradiction playing out in front of us. As the hours stretched, the emotional gravity of the situation deepened. The human cost was not just the presence of grief or the strain of moral decision-making, it was the psychological imprint on everyone who bore witness. We were all drawn into that liminal space with Dorian, compelled to navigate the surreal landscape of human life and death, ethics and instinct, love and helplessness. Put yourself in Rebecca's position, facing a person who is gone by law, yet whose body insists on defying that verdict. How do you mourn? How do you hope? How do you balance care with despair when the boundary between life and death is so tenuous, so fragile, that it shatters every expectation you have ever held about the world? The weight of human emotion filled the room, heavy and inescapable, leaving a lingering unease that no monitor or machine could measure. Every sigh, every whispered name, every tear became part of a silent testament to the cruel and disorienting reality unfolding before us. Investigators ran a battery of tests scanning for toxins, infections, anything that could justify the paradox before us. Blood work revealed an unfamiliar compound, a neurotoxin that had systematically destroyed cardiac muscle while simultaneously rewiring the brainstem to maintain autonomous breathing. The discovery sent ripples of disbelief through the ICU. Every logical explanation we clung to dissolved under the weight of this revelation. It explained the mechanism, the how, but not the motive, the reason, or the timing. Dorian's body continued its mechanical rhythm, seemingly aware yet completely unresponsive to external stimuli. Science offered clarity, yes, but only in fragments, leaving more questions than answers, threads of uncertainty that gnawed at our understanding of life itself. Each pulse of air, each faint rise of the chest, became a reminder that biology can surprise, terrify, and humble in equal measure. And still, the why remained unsolved. The neurotoxin explained nothing about intent, origin, or whether similar cases had been overlooked. The shadow of uncertainty clung to the room, a persistent unease that would not lift. Every glance at Dorian's face, eyes unblinking yet alive with subtle awareness, reinforced a single unnerving truth. Human physiology could perform feats that defied our conventional boundaries, leaving both medicine and conscience unsettled. On a Tuesday morning in May 2024, the ICU was quiet as I checked Dorian Hale's vitals, the kind of routine that no longer carries expectation. He had been in that bed for over a month, breathing but otherwise lifeless. No response to voices, no reaction to touch. Just a body sustained while everyone waited for something that never came. Then, without warning, his hand moved. Slow, controlled. Not the kind of motion you explain away. Before anyone could speak, he drew in a soft, uneven sound, like air finding its way back into someone who had forgotten how to breathe. I called Dr. Morrison. When she stepped in and saw it for herself, she stopped cold. Other nurses gathered, drawn by the sudden shift in the room. We all knew the chart. A month of silence. And yet right in front of us, something had changed. Someone called his wife. Rebecca arrived and froze at the doorway, afraid to move, afraid to hope. When she said his name and took his hand, his eyes shifted just slightly, but enough to steal the air from the room. She broke down, holding him, repeating his name as if it was the only thing keeping him there. Their children stood behind her, unsure whether to step forward. They had already learned how to grieve a father who was still breathing. One of them whispered, "Dad?" No one corrected them. Dorian didn't speak. He didn't sit up, but he was no longer completely gone. The monitors didn't explain it. The protocols had no answer, and the room felt heavier and very quiet. Moments later, as the staff watched in silence, his eyes shifted again, faint, almost imperceptible toward Rebecca. Not a look anyone could prove, not a signal anyone could measure. But every trained eye in that room saw it. It was the same detail that had appeared in other cases. The last trace of awareness, lingering at the edge of life, refusing to disappear quietly. When he finally went still again, the silence pressed in. Rebecca held him as the monitors flattened, disbelief and grief tangled together. What remained wasn't horror, but something colder, a question that medicine still can't answer. Can awareness linger when the body begins to fail? Is consciousness tied to biology alone, or does it resist longer than we expect? That final movement, small, repeated, undeniable, leaves a mark you don't forget. It suggests that between life and death, there is a space science has not fully mapped, something quiet, something persistent, and once you witness it, you carry it with you long after the room goes dark. Standing in the quiet room of the ICU, after Dorian Hale's final moments had passed, I felt the full weight of what had unfolded. Death is a presence we study, measure, and anticipate, yet even with all the protocols and technology at our disposal, it retains a depth we cannot fully grasp. Moments like these remind you that medicine, for all its advances, still confronts mysteries at the very edges of life. I thought about the persistence of the human body, the way consciousness may linger, and how fragile our understanding truly is. For hours, for days, Dorian existed in a space that was neither fully alive nor completely gone. Machines offered no answers. Tests provided no comfort. And yet, in the smallest movements, the subtle shifts of an eye, the barely perceptible rise of a chest that was a whisper that something beyond calculation remained. Watching, listening, recording, and caring, I realized that this experience would stay with me forever. The questions it raised about awareness, mortality, and the delicate architecture of life are not easily dismissed. Each patient in that ICU reminded me that death is not always immediate, not always absolute, and not always what it seems. And the weight of knowing this, standing in witness to a boundary that cannot be measured, lingers in your chest long after the monitors are silent. And as the lights dim and the hallways grow still, we are left with only what we can observe, what we can feel, and what we must carry forward. Leave a comment if you have ever experienced losing a loved one. Don't miss the stories that challenge what you thought you knew about life, death, and everything in between. Subscribe now and stay with us as we uncover the mysteries that linger just beyond reach.